Hi, everyone. It is Thursday, October 7th. This is one of the Incident Manager expansion Ask Me Anything sessions, and this is a public live stream. Let's see, got that set all up there. So thank you for joining. And let's see, I'm looking in the agenda here. Don't have any questions yet, but if anyone would like to verbalize a question or a thought or anything like that, be happy to start up a discussion. I think maybe in lieu of that, I know Fabio, you and I were just exchanging some questions on the issue there, and so hopefully I didn't confuse things more as far as the because you were specifically asking about when to take kind of the recovery time or the time in lieu of when you would be working on the weekends, right?
Yeah, that is like if there is like an incident, you end up spending your day working on the incident and things like that. Like how that normally works, like for engineers, they also do like weekend shift and things like that.
Yeah, and so of course this incident manager shift will not always be something that goes over a weekend, but it will be something that does include weekends as you go from one kind of 3-day shift to another over time. So in some cases that might be just one weekend day. In some cases it could be both of those weekend days. And definitely the intention and design of this is not that you just work more. That's not what we want for anyone. But basically that you shift your week in one way. And so the kind of like the basic intended approach would just be that you shift your week. So like if it includes a Saturday that you would be responsible for incident manager, then that week, the default would be, you move and you would work from Tuesday through Saturday. Now I will, and I noted in there, I don't know that we need to be that I guess strict about it only being that solution. So for like example, if you'd rather just have the Wednesday off that day or a day off the following week, that's something that of course you'd want to communicate with your manager and the rest of your team so that it doesn't come as a surprise to them. But I don't think that we want to be that strict as far as like what exactly the day is that you take off. And I think the other thing that we want to recognize is that being on call is even without an incident is still kind of basically like a sacrifice that you're making. You're deciding to change your time around. You may be deciding to change commitments around, and there is of course when you're on call, there's a certain amount of kind of anxiety that just comes with like, oh, is there going to be an incident? How are things going? And so it isn't without cost, I guess I would say, as an individual. And so even when there's not an incident, that doesn't mean that that you shouldn't still be taking time off for the time that you were on call. So I hope that's helpful. So.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes sense. And it's kind of related to the same context. So that means like that we don't have sort of exceptions in our process, like for when we have things like a friends and family days or like a year-end holiday, like a year-end break, for example, that we're kind of approaching pretty much soon, or if there is a public holidays, like if I choose a slot and I realize that there's actually one of the 3 days is like a public holiday, how does it work there?
Yeah, so in general, for most of those just kind of normal holidays, the friends and family day, we still do need to have somebody covering the incident manager responsibilities. And so most of those we would just have that covered. And the one thing I want to note is that there will of course be times when the days based on the rotation of days where they will fall on time that you intend to be off. They could fall into time where you tend to be on holiday or vacation, or where you have an extended weekend. And I think one of the benefits of having a larger pool of people doing this is that, of course, we can cover for each other and swap days ahead of time, and work those things out. The other thing that I'll note is that there, and we have not covered this in the document yet, and it'll be something that we do need to add. But there are the kind of global holidays. I'd say Friends and Family is kind of one of those, but then there are also the really large global holidays, things like New Year's, for example, where we will likely do, or not likely, we will do some special coverage around that. In other words, what we'll do is we'll adjust those days so that there are maybe a couple of people that cover a larger or longer shift on those days, instead of having the full rotation of 6 people within the day. And that way it's an opportunity for for a couple of people say like, oh yeah, I'm not doing anything. I tend to be like one of those people. It's like, yeah, I'm not doing anything on New Year's anyways. I'm fine working longer shifts so that other people can go out and party and have a good time. And so for some of those, but we won't do that for kind of like every localized holiday. What we'd like to do there is instead people have people kind of trade shifts to cover that. So, I'm sorry, I'm not taking good notes here, but I'll write these in here later after we follow up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions or topics that would be interesting to discuss around this? All right. Well, I won't keep everyone too long. If we Thomas, do you have something?
I do, and apologies. I was trying to scan real fast to see if this question had already been asked, but my scanning has failed. So at the risk of asking a question already answered, I know we need to have people available to respond to incidents, but how frequently have we been having incidents that needed to be responded to of late, if that's something you can share?
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, I don't know if Dave, if you want to jump in here a little bit, because there's I think there have been periods where we have a lot of incidents, and then more recently, there's been such an effort along so many of the different reliability efforts and rapid actions within development and all the different work that the situation has changed pretty dramatically over the last month or so. But Dave, maybe I'll let you do some of the numbers.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't know that I have the spreadsheets with numbers right off the top of my head, but I wanted to ask a clarifying question when you asked that for people responding. Thomas, are you talking about incident managers or engineers on call responding to just a page?
I'm an incident manager, since
Okay.
we're talking about the IMOC program, and just kind of like, and I'm looking for like themes. I don't know, not.
Yeah. Okay. No, and that's what I was just
Yeah.
making sure, because I was like, engineers on call get paged every day. So that frequency isn't going to be very informative for incident managers. So just to make sure I understood that. I'm going to try to do broad brushstrokes, but I'd say it's really spiky in nature. Like last week, not a single ask for help for the whole week for me. This week, I've already sat on 7 hours worth of Zooms. So it varies week by week. And I think the hard part of it is knowing as an incident manager, like what's the extent that we need to be involved, because some of the times I was seeing on the Zooms, it was like, well, some of this is my job. I'm interested to know what's going on. Yesterday was 3 hours worth of time just debugging some things on Giddily related to that stuff. Giddily is one of the noisy things, due to one, the nature of the service, and two, the nature of the customers. So that's where it can be spiky. And the same thing can be said that, in prior months, things have been noisy because of CI abuse or something like that. So it comes and goes in waves, in my opinion. There's not a steady predictability. Like I said, there could be a week that's silent, and there could be a week that, but this has been for me, but I've spent 15 hours on Zooms in a week. But that's because I'm on call every day from 10 to 10. So that's the whole reason we're looking to expand this, with everybody doing 4-hour shifts, at least where there's a little bit more predictability. It's going to create some extra stress on our process in terms of making sure that we hand off, and that incident managers themselves also know, like, coming to the end of that time, it's okay to hand off. You don't need to stick around to see the resolution of it. But I can go repull some metrics, and I think that is probably a reasonable ask to come out of your question too, to show like what's the number of pages that we've pulled incident managers into. I think it's kind of hard because, like, yesterday I was not actually paged. I happened to see stuff in the production channel and just get ahead of it and join the incident Zoom before I'm actually even called on my phone, which that doesn't always happen. But if I'm on and know that I could get paged, that's right. Like, I'll see a comment in the production channel, like, I know where this is going to go. That can also happen. So those are a little harder to pull metrics on, because I don't actually have a number on that, but I can at least pull the pager duty metrics. My general sense, if you tried to smooth it out over the course of like a quarter, is like, averages out to 1 or 2 pages a week. But sometimes that can be lumpy, of 6 in 1 week and 0 the next. So,
David, I was also going to mention that there's also this distinction around, like, maybe what the incident manager role that we've designed would get paged for, versus the kind of like the infrastructure reliability management involvement in
yeah.
Maybe I don't know if you want to note around, because you mentioned like a lot of your involvement this week. The over the past 2 weeks, I think there's been one incident manager.
Correct. Yeah.
There has been a lot of stuff that you've engaged with that is not kind of our customer facing.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, that's why I was still confused, and sorry, it's early morning here, but like the thing that I actually attended yesterday would have been a page. I just happened to jump in front of it, so there would have been 2 this week. So it's a little harder to catch, but yeah, I think we are trying to tune that a little bit towards I'd still like to go gather the numbers, but you're right, Steve. It's not that frequent, and with the way we're trying to slot out the shifts, the 4-hour shifts, hopefully also then the likelihood of any individual seeing a page in a week goes a lot down compared to people covering 12-hour shifts.
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily trying to downplay the numbers or anything like that. I was just noting that there's this kind of distinction between things that still in infrastructure will get involved in escalations that are maybe in parallel and not necessarily related to an active high severity customer facing incident where it could be just as important or even maybe more important, but they're not the incident manager role specifically. So yeah. No, I've been paying attention more to the EOC pages lately. So that's why I was saying, like, I at this point, I'd just take it as an action. I'll go gather some numbers so we can get a little more specifics on that.
Thank you for entertaining the question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Thomas. Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks everyone. And I do want to say, I mentioned it in the last AMA, or the first AMA, I guess, that we did. Certainly appreciate everyone's engagement in learning about this, and definitely everyone who has signed up so far. It is it's an important thing that we do need to cover, and right now it's been kind of on the backs of just a couple of people, Dave in particular, for a long period of time, and our intent here is to approach this with kind of like the many hands makes light work type of approach, and so it's not a burden on any one or a couple individuals. So your participation is really appreciated. So thanks so much, and thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thank you.
Everyone.